Good morning, good morning, good morning, Gordy. Welcome into the Elite Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about mindset shifts, what happens in our industry, what's going on in our markets, what's happening in the industry overall, and we bring you live guests. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring on my next guest, Mr. Scott Spelker from Madison, New Jersey. Welcome in, my friend. How are you?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Very excited to get you on today, and talk about real estate, man. It's definitely a different animal than it was when you and I started, and I think give me your idea on this. Like, where did you start? How did you decide to get into real estate? Where did that idea come from?
It wasn't my first choice. I was a Wall Street trader. I traded currencies for 25 years at a variety of banks and investment banks in New York. And you got a pretty short shelf life in that career. And I guess at around the age of 48, I just knew I wanted to do something different with my life. So I went back to school to become a teacher, high school teacher, history, U.S. history, world history, economics, personal finance, those sorts of things. I completed the program at night. I was pretty excited about doing it. I had coached different sports in town for a bunch of years. So, yeah, I knew I'd like to work with kids. Preferably, I'd rather kind of wanted to teach at the high school level. But at that time, I think it was maybe 12 years ago, there were like 300 applications for every position. So even though I completed the coursework, I student taught at a local high school, and by all accounts, I wasn't awful. A lot of us in that program had a very difficult time getting a job. So I did some long-term subbing, sixth grade actually, some high school subbing, but after like a couple of years, I wasn't able to get anything. And so it's kind of a little bit of a crossroads there. It was a little bit depressing, to be honest with you, because I left something else. I wasn't thrilled about that other job, but I wanted to just do something else. I felt I had a lot to offer, and nobody would take a chance on me. So everybody, well, not everybody, a few people, my brother included, said, you should go into real estate. And it just didn't really appeal to me for a couple of reasons. But eventually I was like, well, I got a whole lot of nothing going on. I'll take the test. If I guess I'll contact some local brokerages and see if they'll hire me, and just take one step. And if I don't like it, I'll quit. And in some respects, it kind of saved my life. I know it sounds dramatic, but I was at a pretty low point. I mean, a couple of years of doing a whole lot of nothing and no purpose and everything. It was pretty bad. I was fortunate that I had a little bit of resources socked away that I was able to make that transition financially, which not everybody has the luxury of that. So that's how I got into real estate, kind of backed into it. And I'm glad I did, because it's provided me with purpose. You have to help people in this business. Nobody really knows what it is, the job is, until you actually do it. But to a large degree, you are a teacher, you are a mentor, you are, especially with young buyers, but you have the ability to help people, and they need that help. And there's a good feeling that comes with that. I mean, the paycheck doesn't stink either when you eventually get paid for your hard work, but you have to be somebody that likes to help other people. And I wasn't sure I was that person, to be honest with you, but it was one of the things. As I started to do the job, I realized that helping other people is part of the job, and it's something that gave me satisfaction beyond just seeing a paycheck. So.
Yeah, no, I love that so much. And it's funny because real estate agents typically, like most agents I talk to in an interview here or just talk to, I do a lot of coaching and training across the country too. Most of us backed into this industry somehow, right? Most of us didn't just decide when we were growing up that we wanted to be a real estate agent. And it's funny, we have a very similar background. So I've been coaching high school basketball for 20 years. And same thing, I did the student teaching, all those things. And then I realized, what teachers make and then what real estate agents make, right? I went into mortgages first. And then I dipped into real estate. But at the same point, you're right. You're so spot on with it. It's we're here to help people. And what people don't realize is real estate's a service industry. And we're providing a service for people to help them move into or out of a home. And a lot of times, given our age, parents are passing away, they got to sell a house, right? People are getting divorced, they have to sell a house. So it's not always sunshine and rainbows when we have something to sell either, right? Yeah. And so, based on that, your background, your heart is what is what helps you sell, right? You do things right from the heart. It makes sense. You're helping people move in and out of a home. And so where did you, now you've built a mammoth, right? Now you started out just doing this thing and like, go doing my thing. And now you and your wife are teamed up and doing this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Everybody has a different idea of what successful is. I think you're successful if you think you're successful, you know, and you're getting out of whatever it is you're doing to the degree that you're happy with. So, you know, I guess by some metrics, we're successful based on the amount of dollar volume and commissions we generate. But, you know, you could always look at there's teams that have like 20 agents on them, and it's like, you know, they're making multiples of what I make. Oh, by the way, that sound that goes off every once in a while, that alerts me when my wife is within a 5-mile radius of the office. So I have the different things set up to make sure that I can get the heck out of this office before she comes through the parking lot from the back door there. But yeah, no, I appreciate the nice words that we're successful. You know, it's not like we're the be all end all of real estate agents by any stretch, but I did basically take something from nothing, which is really what we all started out with, and built it into a pretty good brand in this area. And we did like, I don't know, so we're usually doing somewhere between 20 and 30 million bucks a year in business without a huge team. It's really primarily it's my wife and I. And that's, in fairness, it's not like we're doing 100 transactions. The average price around here is probably somewhere around $1 million, or median is probably $1 million bucks. So it depends. Some years we're doing 20, 25 million. Sometimes we're doing 30. But there's a reason why we got there. And it's, you know, it's easy to just say it's hard work, but I think a lot of it has to do with just kind of putting yourself out there. You've got to be kind of involved in the community. And some people are. Sometimes it's through their kids. They meet other people. They play pickleball. They play tennis, whatever. You just meet people, and it just takes a little bit of time. But if you don't want it to take too long, you need to really spend some money on marketing. Anytime you do any business, you got to let the world know. Anybody with it, your sphere, by email is very inexpensive to do. But I mean, mailers, whatever, you just have to advertise. And you know, the first year I made $50,000, and I think I spent 40 back into the business, whether it's, you know, paying for photos and videos and stuff like that, but also advertising in the placement of the diner, the church, the town ball fields, you name it. I was advertising everywhere. The next year did about $90,000 in commissions, and I spent about $50,000. And my wife was like, this is before she joined me. She's like, yeah, what did you make? How much did you make? Like 140,000 and you spent 90. What did you make? 25 grand a year for 2 years? She said, you seem like you're working pretty hard for not a lot of money. You would have made more as a teacher. And I said, honey, I'm like Amazon. I'm building, it's all revenues right now. The profits will come. I'm building a base. And, you know, eventually the revenue, you know, the spending is consistent. You know, it hasn't, you know, quadrupled or anything. Spending is very consistent with the early days. It's just I don't know if it's the numerator or denominator, but the amount of money that we're making is way larger than it was when I was spending at 45 or 50. So that would be my advice. If you have the means to do it, or if you have maybe another income in your family, if you have the ability to kind of say, listen, the first 2 years, I don't plan on keeping a whole lot of the money I make. I'm going to roll it back into the business. You're going to make more money in the long run. You will absolutely make more money, and you'll ramp up quicker. So my advice would be, you know, some people want to just spend $1,000 on some mailers throughout the year. And it's like, that's fine. And you're still going to get business from people, you know, and friends. But if you really want to start making some money, you got to put money back in. And I did that in spades.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. That's, now we have social media. We have, you know, you got to be on social media to do the things and all that stuff, which is free if you do it, yes. But you have to consistently do it. Right. And to your point with the mailers, if you're not consistent with the mailers and then you have a follow-up process, you can that money just goes out the window.
Yeah. And the social media, look, when I first started advertising on Facebook, I was one of the first ones in our office that was doing Facebook ads. I think it was like 2015 or 16. And I remember thinking, and some of your agents out there that may advertise on Facebook, they'll appreciate how different the pricing is. When I first started doing it, it was like you've reached 15,000 people and 6,000 views of your video. And I remember they would say, like, do you want to advertise your open house for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days? And I would say, like, 3 days. And it was like I could spend $8 or $10 for the 3 days and reach like thousands and thousands. And I remember thinking, this is like a pretty good deal. I said, something's got to change. They're either going to charge me more or they're going to not let me see. It's not going to reach as many people. And yeah, sure enough, now it's like $80 for me to reach 1,000 or 600 people. And that's why their stock has gone from, $30 to 600. But it used to be really cheap. And I was never, my generation, we didn't grow up with social media. So I said, at some point, I really need to spend the money and have somebody that really, this is what they do for a living, and they're experts at it. They'll be able to promote me way better than I could promote myself. So I committed to a decent amount of money per month for them to promote our business, our brand, all kinds of different things, our listings, to get me interviews, on different podcasts like yourself. So that's something that I would consider. If the budget doesn't allow, or you're young and more clever than I am, then absolutely, just lots of videos of yourself, provide value. I mean, sometimes that's helpful too. Which is, my wife is again within 5 miles of here. I just heard that. But that would be something I would do, because it's not expensive. If you're just putting stuff out to your friends, you could do emails, or you could do, Instagram, whatever, LinkedIn, whatever you want to do that's not going to cost you a ton of money, and then kind of commit some of that other money to mailers.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, are you a believer in like the 20%? Like I take whatever I make, 20% goes back into my advertising? Or do you have a different system than that?
When I first started out, it was 90%, and then it became 45, 50%. And I don't know what it is now, but I think, especially, it just depends on how much you believe in yourself. Sorry about that. How much you believe in yourself, and how much, because people think they're taking risk, and you can't quantify it. So if I'm doing a mailer and dropping $2,000, or if I create a newsletter and spend $4,000 to hit the entire town, or if I put a sign up at the ball field for $1,000 for a year, nobody calls you up and said, hey, I was just at church and I looked at the church bulletin and I said, I'm going to list my house with this guy because he's in the church. Nobody really gives you the feedback of why they're using you. They just heard about you, or a friend may have told them. So it's kind of a leap of faith to put money out into marketing yourself and advertising, not knowing if or how you're going to get a return on that investment. It's hard to quantify it, but all I can tell you is, throw enough stuff at the wall. Just bombard them. This is a cheap way to do it. When I first started listing houses, one of my first listings, I customized my signs. So it had to say Coldwell Banker on it, but I customized my signs. I wanted people, when they saw that sign, to know exactly by the logo, everything, who that was. It would stand out. So I'd have an open house. Most agents will put a couple open house signs out with, this corner, that corner. And I bought like 15 signs, and I would put signs. Sometimes my friends are like, where is this thing? I've been driving for 3 miles and I can't find the house. I was in another town putting signs. I would just put signs everywhere. So no matter where anybody was driving that Saturday or Sunday, they were seeing my sign. And, it's a giant pain in the neck to pick them up at the end of the day. But, that's something, again, you invest in those signs, custom signs, people recognize your logo, and put a ton of them out, especially when you're first starting. Now I get a little bit lazy. I might put like 3 or 4 signs out. But back then I wanted everybody and their mother to know I was doing real estate. Anytime you turn the corner, you saw one of my signs. Just what I did.
Gary Vee says it, right? The attention is the asset, and the more attention you can put on anything, the better it is. Whether that's an open house or whatever you're doing in your business, the more attention more eyeballs you can get on it. That's one of the things I always coach agents on, even when we're talking about a listing appointment. Like, my job is not to sell your house. My job is to market your home to the most amount of people possible, right? Like, that's my job, is to put it in front of many eyeballs as I possibly can. So when you first started out, you got to where you're at. What did 2020 look like for you? That COVID time, it was dicey for all of us, right? We were locked down and doing different states were doing different things, and what was that like? What was it like during that time?
Well, there was a lot of uncertainty. So I remember thinking that this could be a complete goose egg on the year. We might not make a dime, selling real estate. One of the things that, especially in the earlier years, I was always trying to be ahead of the curve on any new stuff that was coming out, any new ideas, any new technology. So one of the companies that I used the owner of the company, I would call him up and like, what do you got? What's the latest and greatest? And he was happy not only to sell me the product, but he knew I was like a guinea pig that I would try it. And one of the things he had this thing go back then was called Matterport, which is a 3D walkthrough. Now it sounds kind of old hat, but at the time, like not only did not agents around here not use it, but they never even heard of it. And so I was doing these 3D walkthroughs, and so COVID hits. And all of a sudden, I could maybe on a listing presentation with the mask on, but say, hey, listen, we don't know whether people are going to be allowed to come into your house, but I have something that I've been doing for a while that I can offer that's going to be helpful, because they'll be able to do a 3D walkthrough in your house where they can click on and go from room to room, turn around and everything. So I remember a couple months into it, some other agents in our office were like, has anybody ever heard of Matterport? And I just remember thinking, I'm so glad that I was ahead of the curve on that, because it definitely helped. And I try to do that, this whole AI stuff with, we're doing AI sometimes. I use it for different reasons, but believe me, I'm no expert, but I'm always trying to figure out new ways to use it. But some of our videographers are using that now, where they can pop in people. So, you're doing a video of your house, really high-end video, and all of a sudden, like in the kitchen, there were real life people in there. I thought I maybe would do one at some point where my face is on all the characters, including like, even if they have small kids like playing in the TV room or something, and my face is on, even on the dog, put my face on the dog too. But so I've been using AI for that. And also like the opening scene of the house, it'll show it in summer, and then it'll go to fall, and it'll go winter, and then in spring, and it just shows the house, and it just transforms with the flowers, the snow, the leaves, whatever. So that's kind of cool. And, put that out there, put the one, with the people out enjoying themselves on the patio or whatever like that. So I try to stay ahead of the curve a little bit, because it interests me, but it's also a way to market people's homes. And you hit the nail on the head. When I sit down with prospective clients, I said, listen, what you're paying me to do is get people through the front door. Because if they don't come through the front door, it's highly unlikely they're going to buy your house or write an offer on it. You're paying me to get people through the front door, any way, shape, or form. And we think that our marketing, in conjunction with what Coldwell Banker and Compass has to offer, allows us to reach more eyeballs, as you said, than most agents. And that's really, where you can make the difference. There's other things you do too, negotiations, inspection issues, all these other things. But that to me is a big motivator, is to try to get the most people through the front door. And the other thing that I pitch people on, you have to really soul search on this, because you have to really believe it in your heart, is our whole conversation starts with the word trust. Trust. It's it. There's nothing else that I could say after that first conversation when we're sitting down with future clients and say, listen, maybe it's from my Wall Street background where everybody's trying to get over on somebody else, especially in New York City. It's all about trust. And trust to me means you can trust that we are competent. Like, we're going to pick up the phone. We're going to be responsive. We know what we're doing. We're sharp. When you meet people that are good at what they do. That's really important. You can trust us that we have that. Don't take my word for it. I'm going to give you a whole bunch, 50 names. You can call people and find out. But the other part of trust is there's a lot of games that can be played in real estate. And you know that as well as I do. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but agents can do different things that are in maybe the agent's best interest. And not necessarily illegal, but maybe not in the best interest of the seller. And so I want them to know that they can always trust us to do what's in their best interest and try to get them the most money for their house. That's what drives me. That's what motivates me. But it's not enough to just feel that way or try to demonstrate it through the transaction. You need to articulate that up front. And I've had people say to me afterward, you explained a few different things, whether it was dual agency or other things. You went into greater detail on that and how that can be used against a potential, a seller. And the reason they went with us, because I spent enough time to talk to them about why it's important to trust who you're working with. Because if you don't have that, you've got nothing. So I would really start with that if I was a new agent coming out, is really kind of figure out who you are. As time goes on, you're going to have more stories. That's the other thing that's hard about when you first start out. You don't have many stories. But as you start doing transactions, somebody goes, well, like what happens with inspection issues? You say, well, listen, here's an example. I saved the client $8,000. Somebody came in, was trying to do a money grab on a chimney inspection for $10,000. I brought my expert in who's really well known in the area. He wrote it up for $2,000. I was able to save my client $8,000 on that. So you have stories, and could be an appraisal story. It could be a roof that, was leaking. The more you do it, the more transactions you have, the more stories you're going to have. So you'll be able to display that you are competent in your field. You're an expert in your field, because that's important. The people that are working, or you're going to be working for, they need to see that you're doing business, but they also need to sense and really truly feel that you're an expert in your field. So, write articles, or if you read a good article, share it on Facebook. It wasn't your article necessarily, but you're showing that you are interested in the field, and you're always trying to learn, and that comes across over time. It's not going to be instant. It's not instant gratification in this business. It takes a little time to build it, but over time, it's also like an annuity. You sell somebody a house today, and 10 years from now, they decide they want to sell their house because they're moving to Florida. You're still there, and then they get their kids that want to move to the area. So, most fields, and the people I listen in this area, I mean, I'm friends with CEOs, I'm friends with attorneys, I'm friends with doctors. I can tell you that most people in the jobs that they do, and you may agree with this or not, they always say, I wouldn't have my kids follow me into this field. I wouldn't want my kids to do what I do.
So many people say that.
Right? So many people.
So many.
Yeah. And I can honestly say about real estate, I have no problem. Like everybody else, I think there's a little bit of concern whether AI down the road what jobs is that going to knock out? I don't think it's going to knock out real estate, because there's way too many moving parts, way too much hand holding that goes on in this business. I'm dealing this morning with inspection issues. I got to get a sewer line guy in to check something, run a scope through that. I've got a roofer guy. There's too many moving parts. I don't think we're going to get disrupted by AI. But I can honestly say, after having another career, that I don't think I'd have a problem with my kid going into this business, because it can be quite lucrative. And if you start at a pretty young age, you can ramp up pretty quickly. And you are your own boss. You drive your own success. You have flexibility. It's not like your whole weekend is jammed up, where Saturday and that's what I thought. I was like, oh man, Saturday and Sunday, I've got no life. It's not true at all, especially if you even have, like, my wife's as a partner with me. You can divide and conquer, but you jam a few showings in there between 10 and 1 or something like that, and you're free to go in the afternoon. Mondays are great. Usually you hate Mondays when you have a regular job. Mondays in real estate are amazing. You do a couple hour open house on a Sunday, you feel like you've really logged some time on a Sunday, and Monday you're like, woohoo, I've got nothing. I'm doing nothing. There's no real estate agent working on Monday. So it has a completely different feel than the other job. You're like, Sunday night, you're like, oh no, got to go through another week of this commuting into New York. But so it's, yeah.
No, you're so right, man. And there is a lot to this business. I'm really big into AI. I've been in a deep dive with it for about 2 years now. And we're like a fork in the road of this AI world that we're living in. I don't know if you've traveled recently.
Oh, hang on, let me interrupt you 1 second. My wife just walked through the door. I told you, when that thing sounded, she's within 5 miles, and she just walked in the door. When your computer makes that giant dinging sound, I let them on to a little secret that whenever you're within 5 mile radius of where I am, that the alarm goes off on your computer, so that I know. But she just walked in. All right, sorry, go ahead.
When you talk bad about it.
Yeah, when I talk bad about you. AI, yes. You could
This is what I want to touch on, that, because this is awesome. I've been married for 26 years. I don't know how long you've been married. But what is that dynamic like working together? Because you got the alarm going off, you got all those kind of things. But what is that? What is that dynamic like? And how long has your wife been doing it? Like, you've been doing it for 12 years. How long has she been in the business?
My answer is going to be different because she's in the room. You realize that, right?
I do. I'm married for 26 years. I get it.
Now, we've been together. Let's see, we're 63. We've been together since we're 18. What is that? 45 years. Married for 38.
Incredible. First off, incredible.
She said it feels like 70. Amy's mom is 90, and she started doing real estate around 45 or 47. Her mom was a realtor for, I don't know, the better part of.
Till this year.
Well, yeah, she's slowing down at 90. The woman is slow as molasses unless there's a commission check.
Oh,
if there's a commission check, she's like Jesse Owens in the 36 Olympics. But other than that, you're trying
she was there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she was there. You try to get it through an airport. You better get there 2 days in advance, not 2 hours. but yeah, so my wife we both went to college together. She had an interior decorating background. She was in publishing for a while in New York. So the interior design she really liked doing for about 10 years. And I asked her if she wanted to go into staging for my listings. She said, absolutely not. So I was getting really busy, and I was doing good business, but I always say there's a lot of people in town that know me, but everybody likes Amy. There's a subtle difference there. So everybody knows me, but everybody likes her. So she's making a face. So yeah, I mean, and she's without going too ballistic here, but she's really, really nice person. Just really, really giving person, and just really genuine and heartfelt. So a lot of times, it's not that I'm not. It's just by comparison, I look like garbage. But once we start working with somebody, they are extremely happy with the level of service and kind of support and patience that my wife has. So she brings a lot to the table from the decorating standpoint, working with buyers, helping them envision kind of some of the things they can do with their houses. This is what this will cost. She has a really good, she brings a lot to the table. She probably brings more to the table than me, but we don't need to let her know that.
Listen, I always say the sign of a good salesman is when he outkicks his coverage with the wife. If his wife is too good looking for him, that means you're a good salesman.
Yeah. Well, if you saw her, you realize that I'm a great salesman. She
I love that.
The thing is, yeah, she looks. You can look her online, Amy Spelker. But if you saw the picture, you'd be like, this woman's probably in her 40s and not 63. It's to the point now where other agents in my office have said that are in their 40s, and they're like, they were out at a social gathering of the weekend, and they said, some of our friends came up to me. This is another realtor, and they came up to the realtor and they said, "You work with Scott and Amy Spelker?" And she said, "Yeah." And they said, "Is that his second wife?" And then somebody else goes, no. I think it might be his third. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? She's actually 2 months older than me, but it's like, it's not even close. But it's a good relationship for the most part. Work wise, I think her concern was that we would be sitting in a cubicle together from 8 to 5, and she wouldn't be able to deal with that. So we kind of do our own thing. We help each other out. Some listings she might take over a little bit more than me. Other ones I do. Certainly getting a house ready before photography, videography, all that stuff. That's her baby. She makes sure that the place looks great. She's a stickler for detail. So she'll make sure that everything is absolutely perfect before the videos or anything is shot. I tend to steer towards the marketing, negotiations, the contracts, that sort of stuff. So, we balance each other out. And I always tell her, if there's anything you really hate doing, tell me, and I'll take that over, because I don't want you to quit.
Yeah. Or you don't want her to fire you.
Yeah. She's smart.
But
She's a really smart woman. She lets me think I'm in charge.
Yeah. It's so nice and refreshing to hear, because it's this stressful business, right? And it's so nice to hear, like, but you figured out what lane she's in, you figured out what lane you're in, right? You've balanced this out not only in your marriage but also in your business, and I think that's an incredible testament to what you guys are built, and I think it's great. And to go on back to the AI stuff that we were talking about, yeah. Right? The AI stuff is, we're at this, this like a proverbial fork in the road of everybody it's the new AI thing, right? You can get new leads. You'll be the first one viewed on ChatGPT. You're going to be the first one. If you pay me, I'll show you how to use AI, right? Everybody's got their system and their thing. And one of the places that I don't want to go, and like I said, I don't know if you traveled recently, but in the airport, they had these new little stores, right? And you just go in there, scans everything, and you walk out, and it hits your credit card, and there's no one working there, right? Yeah. And that's not a world I want to live in, right? And I don't think, to your point, that's not a world real estate can ever go to, because there is a lot of hand-holding in this. There is a lot of guidance that we need and leadership that we need as realtors to get people through these transactions, negotiations, the inspections. We all have when we run the sewer scope through, hopefully it doesn't happen to you, the collapsed line, right? Now what happens, right? Then you can't AI your way out of that one. There's no AI in your way out of that one. Somebody's got to negotiate that and figure that piece out. So I don't think I think it's going to affect, it's affecting real estate, But that's why I've developed, like, I call it the human plus system, right? It's where we're implementing emotional intelligence with artificial intelligence. So that's where I've gone with it, is like, how do we combine the two things? AI can help you and support your business, can automate a ton of things for you.
Yeah.
Right. But and help you get some more free time back. But how do you get that free time back? So that's a whole nother episode. But with your business right now, currently, what are you seeing in the market? Like, what are your thoughts on interest rates? What's your days on market right now, where you're at?
And that is very specific to what state you're in, and even within that state. So it's definitely a regional thing. I think there was something in the New York Post recently, not exactly the Wall Street Journal or New York Times, but it's comes out daily. It's kind of like, it's got a lot of sports stuff in there and tabloid stuff. But it said that something along the lines about New Jersey is like the hottest real estate market in the nation right now. So you read other stuff and there's, things are slower or days on market are longer. I can tell you, at least in northern part of New Jersey, things are typically go on the market on a Thursday, and there's a broker open. Sometimes we even do a kind of a public open house because people work from home. So from 11 to 1 on Thursday. Showings on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Open house on either Saturday and or Sunday. By Tuesday, if the place is priced even remotely correctly, you are going to be getting multiple offers. And typically on either Tuesday or Wednesday, some people do it on Monday, there is what we call the highest and best. And this is playing out. I would be willing to bet 80 to 90% of the listings within a 20-mile radius of where I am. This is pretty much exactly how it plays out. On Thursday, highest and best Tuesday, into attorney review on Wednesday. And it's days on market is whatever, 5-6 days by choice. And I had something in Madison recently. It was priced a little bit on the low side to make sure we got good interest. We had, and this is very unusual, we had 110 appointments, 41 offers, and it went for more than $500,000 over the asking price of 1.2. We had another one that went for 40-something% over asking, 40 showings, 20 offers. That also went for hundreds of thousands over asking. So the market around this part of New Jersey is still really, really strong for sellers. It's horrible for buyers because they're competing on every single house they write an offer on. There's 5, 10, 20 offers, and it's tough to get a house. There is supply. It's not that there's no supply. I would say in 2019 or 18, we were typically getting about 190 houses in our town. 180, 190 houses go on the market and sell. Now we're kind of more like a 125. So, it's 70 houses less, that 30, 40%, less houses on and more interested buyers. So it's basic supply and demand. Even when interest rates went from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, you didn't have people backing off. They were trying to jump in before they went from 6 to 7 or before they went from 7 to 8.
Right.
So it's still very, very strong. Last year it was as well. So I don't know how that lasts, but for right now, it's a huge seller's market.
Yeah. No, and it's price point matters, right? Where I'm at, you can go anywhere from $50,000 house to a $10 million house in about 2 miles. You know what I mean? So we have those very different markets. But
I'm seeing it even at, the kind of the price point here is somewhere between 800, say, and 1.2. That's a lot of the houses. But even the houses that are 2 million, 2.5, 2.8, I've written offers on a whole bunch of these houses in towns around here, and multiple offers, 5 offers, 8 offers. I mean, not 40 offers, but 5 or 6 offers, and you're writing an offer for a couple $100,000 over the 2.6 list price. Maybe you're going to 2.8. I'm sorry, you didn't got it. You were 7th out of 12. It's like, what?
Oh my God.
Who the heck has all this money that they're buying these, $3 million houses? I guess
somebody's got it. You're making me want to move to New Jersey. Maybe I should move to New Jersey and join your team.
Hey, I'm living proof. If Spelker can sell real estate, anybody can do it. like to inspire. This guy's an idiot. If anybody can do it, I can certainly do it. Maybe somebody's watching and going, I don't know that I'm smart enough or bright enough or clever enough to do this job. And they watch this and they see my interview and they're like, oh man, dude, if this guy can do it, man.
Right.
No,
I love it.
People that way.
Yeah, but it again, it goes back to what you've created is a relationship business. You know what I mean? And are most of your business is built on Sphere, right? Your town, you've done a lot of advertising with the baseball fields and all that kind of stuff, your family and stuff. Do you have a lead source, or are you just all manufacturing it on your own?
Yeah, I don't pay for leads. I mean, I did when I first started out with Zillow, but I haven't paid for leads in a long time. It's buyers right now are tough because you're going to be committing to writing many offers and a lot of different houses. It's a lot more work dealing as a buyer's agent than a listing agent. So listings, if you were going to pay for leads, at least currently you would want to pay for listing leads because that's the way to go. The good news when you have buyers is eventually they may actually sell their house and it's kind of a residual. Whereas if I list their house to sell and they move to Florida, highly unlikely we're going to do business ever again. So you kind of want to have a little bit of a balance between buyers and sellers. But look, at the end of the day, whatever comes my way, that's what we work with. You know, that's just kind of the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, everybody lists to last, right? You need more listings to last in this business. To your point, you wear the rubber off your tires trying to drive around, show clients a bunch of houses. And then you got to write the offer, and then you got to not get accepted. Then you got to break that news to your client. Then you got to go write another offer. It's tough, and it's created a tough market. Who knows where these rates are going to go? Everybody says we're going to see a dip by Q3. Whether we do or not, I don't know. But hopefully, I mean, it's going to create some movement, because I think that's the biggest problem. And I want to get your take on that. My take on it is that people aren't moving right now because they're still sitting on that 3% interest rate that they got in 2020. And so they're not going to move for a 7 or 8%. It doesn't make any sense financially. So, but I think they would move for a 5, right? I think they would go 3 to 5, not 3 to 7. Well, what's your take on that? As this inventory's got it kind of stagnant. You say you got some movement where you're at. But nationally, we know that inventory is up a little bit. I think they said it's up about 14% from what it was a year ago. So what's your take on that moving forward? What do you see for the rest of the year?
Well, yeah, and there was talk of the government was talking about being able to port your mortgage, P-O-R-T. So you basically have your 3% mortgage. You can port that thing to, you're trading on a house from $500,000 to $800,000. You can keep your $500,000 mortgage and then maybe check out a different loan for the $300,000. It's great in theory, highly unlikely that it's ever going to happen. And you're right. I mean, I tell people all the time not to move. They have a 3% or 2.75% mortgage. It's really hard to be a trade up buyer with that. You've got something that rate is never going to be seen again. It's like really have to hang out. I tell them, if you can rent your house out, keep that mortgage and then buy something else, but don't want to get rid of that mortgage. As far as rates, I think you're right as well. It's the spread and how much pain, if somebody has a 3%, to look at a more expensive house and take on a 5% mortgage. All right, it's going to be painful. You've got a bigger mortgage now because it's a more expensive house and you've got a worse interest rate. 3 to 5 is probably bearable. The closer you get back to 3, it's going to be more likely to have some more, what's the word I'm looking for? More transactions and more velocity of deals going through. You're 6 or 7 or 8, it's really hard. What we're seeing a lot, like when I try to figure out who are selling their houses. So sometimes the last one goes through high school and kids are going off to college. They don't need the school system. The taxes in New Jersey, property taxes are quite high. So you'll see people like that are moving out of state. And typically you can go to a lot of places from New Jersey and it's less expensive. So they're probably paying cash with that. Or they have maybe a Jersey Shore house that they're going to sell this house up here and spend full time at their shore house or their lake house, whatever. So they don't have to buy anything else. Sometimes they're selling an expensive house here for, say, $2 million, and then they look to buy something else somewhere else, maybe in a little bit less expensive area of New Jersey for $1 million in cash, pocket the difference of whatever they have left on their mortgage and whatever equity they had. You also get estate sales. You got people that are, pass away, go into assisted living, got to sell their house. Also divorces. That's another one. I always wondered how many people stay married because they have a 2 3/4. Like if they had a variable rate, and that thing's at 7%, people are divorcing all over the place. But you got 2 3/4. It's like, honey, you are a disaster. But having said that, 2 3/4, we got to stick it together for the kids. We got to stay together because of the kids and the mortgage. Yeah, I think it's keeping marriages together, man. Those low rates.
That's funny. And it sounds crazy, but there's got to be some statistical relevance to that, right? There's got to be something to that.
I can guarantee you. No, it's never entering the thought process of the woman. In my view, don't take us the wrong way, ladies. I think it's a credit to you that went into your phone. Guys, absolutely. They're thinking of finances. If we get divorced, everything's split down the middle. I've got to go get another place. Oh my God, I got a 2 3/4. Older guy friends are like, dude, you can't give up that mortgage. You got to stick it out. But the woman is way more smart, and it's not allowing finances to interfere with what really is important in life. She's like, this guy and his 2 3/4% mortgage can get the heck out of my front door,
Right.
But,
right.
Yeah, it did occur to me, like, sometimes when because we have some friends every once in a while, someone's getting divorced. I'm like, I wonder what their mortgage rate is. And my wife's like, what? What do you mean? What do you their mortgage rate? Nothing. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but it's a thought, right? It's definitely a thought because now you split everything. Like you said, you sell the house, everybody gets half, whatever.
Yeah, everybody gets to go buy another property at 6.5% mortgage that they can't afford.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean that's a lot, and it's an interesting space. We talked about it briefly before we jumped on today too. Is like I coach agents, and I say there's 2 reasons that houses sell in this country every day, and it's death and divorce, right? And it's not, you can't jump for joy when you're getting a sale based on somebody dying or somebody getting divorced. Like that's not a fun place to be in. I've got a couple friends that are attorneys. They refer me when there's a divorce happening.
Yeah, me too.
And when you walk into that, it can be a mess. And again, going back into the AI thing, AI ain't handling that mess. Like that's on us to handle that.
I sat down with a couple. I was new in the business too, and a divorce attorney sent me their name. And so I sat down at the dining room table. It was like at 4 or 5 in the afternoon with them, and I was like, so got the referral from who and blah blah blah, and the wife goes, yes, we got divorced. And I said, yeah. When is that going to be? Are you both still living here? Oh no, we got divorced. I said, oh, you got divorced? When was that? She goes, about 2 hours ago. I said, 2 hours ago? She goes, yeah, it was finalized 2 hours ago. And I said, nobody has any weapons on them, do they? My husband and her both were laughing. I said, I got to be honest with you. You two are nicer to each other than my wife and I are, and we're still married. So I got a kick out of that. I've had some other ones where the couple was getting divorced, and it was like 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday night, and they were texting each other and saying some really not very nice things, but didn't realize that it was part of the text chain that we had going as their agent. At the time, Amy wasn't with me, so it was just me and them on a text chain, and they were just laying into each other about different things, not realizing that I was on the text chain. So I'm thinking, man, like, do I pretend like I never saw this, or do I stop it before it gets worse? So I just jumped in. I'm like, hey, everybody, hope everybody's having a good Saturday night. I said, just give you a heads up that I'm on this text chain. And then he was just like, woo, crickets. And then they must have gone off. But yeah, they were saying some pretty interesting things. And I was like, I do not need to see this.
I don't need to be privy to this information. I need a lot of information from it, but I don't need that information. Yeah, I don't need that information.
About this business. You got tons of stories. Like, there's some good stories with this job,
Yeah, I always say, like, when my career is over and I decide to hang up my real estate license, I'm gonna write a book of all the things that you see.
Sections of a realtor.
Yeah, like there's so many things, right? I took clients out to show them a house one time, and we found dead cats, but they weren't just dead cats; they were like laid out in drawers.
What?
We left. Yeah, we left. Right. I mean, the wife was like, "What is going on here?" They were like laid out in the. I'm like, "Oh, so Fluffy died, and you just kept them in the drawer?" I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't understand why they were in the drawer.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of weird things that you see,
Yeah.
on a daily basis, man. And the more things you go out and do, that you see these people of where they're at, what they're doing. These when you walk into people's house, I just had a listing appointment this week, and I walked in, and I'm like, you didn't bother cleaning up at all before I came over here. You didn't think about that at all. Like, it didn't cross your mind
No.
to do anything before I came over. So then I've created a checklist for pictures, right? So I send it to them before what needs to be done,
Right.
all the things that need to be done before we take pictures. And my photographers called me from time to time and said, I had to move a bunch of stuff like out of rooms, back into rooms, do all the things. Cause and again, that goes back to being hiring good professional photographers, plumbers, whoever you're using. Photographer is the most important thing. I see listings all the time where the agent's taking them with their phone, and I'm just like,
what happens.
yeah, I'm like, and it's a $500, $600, $700,000 home. And you see the agent in the mirror in the bathroom,
That's insane.
in the picture.
I see some other pictures where the opening shot was like an angle, which was like 60% of the picture was the garage door, and then like this tiny little vestibule we enter the house, and I'm like, why would you do that? I posted, I think on online, I said, next time somebody tells me that there's no difference between real estate agents, I said, just take a look at this. But
yeah,
I was putting on my glasses before, because not only do you sound like him, but you know who you look like?
I always get scared to get that question.
Louis C.K. You sound
Maybe
a
I'm
little
missing
bit
something.
Oh my God!
Maybe
You know who he is? The comedian.
Yeah.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah, I mean, well, he did get canceled for a few years, but that's a different story. But you do sound a little bit like him, and you look a little bit like him. You could use Louis C.K.
Maybe I should take this. Maybe I should take this on the road and see what I can do as far as stand-up comedy goes.
I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. It's uncanny. Nobody's ever told you that, huh?
No, I haven't heard that one. I haven't heard that one.
I'm friends.
Yeah.
I don't know how they missed that.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. What's your future look like? What's your next 5 years look like for you? What's your thought process on that? Because we don't see a lot of real estate agents retire.
Yeah. I mean, I was just talking about when I was on Wall Street, my goal was to retire at 40. And that didn't happen. And then, we really, really wanted to get out of that business. And so I had a couple of years off, which no money coming in. And I started doing this at whatever, I guess I was something like 51 or something. So, I'm at 63 now. I probably really could retire. But why? Why would I do that? It keeps me busy. There's a lot of hours in the day. Listen, I understand if somebody's been working since they're 22 years old and they're my age, they're 63, and they've gotten their 2 weeks vacation a year or the 3 weeks vacation a year, and they want to be retired and like, screw this guy Spelker, he thinks he's going to keep working. I totally get it. You're 63. It's like, absolutely retire, never set an alarm clock again. I know, but I've done that at 48, whatever. And I left Wall Street and I couldn't get a teaching job. I spent 3 years basically doing nothing and, waking up whenever I wanted, not commuting into New York at 5:45 in the morning. So I had that and I was bored. Even if you have friends that are kind of retired at the same time, there's a lot of hours in the day, man. I'm speaking from experience. There's a lot of hours in the day, and you try to fill it up with whatever you can. But working, and I get this when we get December and January and we're quiet in real estate. I'm at the gym like 7 days a week because I got to kill some time. But if when you're busy, it's always trying to strike a balance. You never seem to have the right amount of business. It's either too much or too little. But the point is, I plan on doing this for at least into my, at least 70, another 7 years, and possibly longer, because, you can also be more selective. I mean,
Mhm.
you decide, hey, listen, we're going on a trip. I'm going to give this listing to somebody else, or I'm going to hand off this buyer to somebody else. You can turn business down if you want to at a certain stage of your life. But I just think and there's so many different studies that say that people that cognitively are sharper, longer, way longer in years, and that actually live longer, it's because they have purpose, and they have community, and they have, just interacting with other people. So if
Yeah.
you're not working, you maybe, you're hanging around watching cartoons all day. But if you're doing this business, you're constantly meeting other people. Your brain is constantly working. So it's probably better for your longevity, physically and mentally, to continue to work. Unless you're miserable what you're doing. If you're really miserable what you're doing, then I would say, yeah, don't do it. Especially if financially, if you have the resources and you're miserable what you're doing, you absolutely should get out. Because I know what that feels like. For years, I was miserable working on a trading desk, and I just felt trapped, and I didn't know how to exit. How do you exit from this? What am I going to do? And it was kind of scary. It was absolutely scary. To be, in your late 40s and saying, I have very, very specific skill set. Who the heck is going to hire me to do anything? Like, what would I even do? So, I think it really boils down to, if you kind of still like what you're doing, and if you're not loving it, well, then just dial it back a little bit. Maybe just take a little bit more vacations here and there, or just see if you could. Like, I hired an admin to take over some of the stuff. I said, look, we had a good year. Some of the things I really don't enjoy doing. And I was like, why don't I just pay this person to handle some of the minutiae I just can't stand doing? I mean, maybe I'll work an extra couple of years because I don't hate doing all that little minutia stuff. It makes the job better. On a 1 to 10, it's a 9 if I don't have to do all this junk I don't like. And, that's another way that you may be able to prolong your career, is to kind of remove some of the really minutia things you really don't like doing. Pay somebody to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a spot on. And I think you're right. I think one of the things, I ran at one point one of the largest teams here in the state of Michigan. We had 120 agents, and I was a sales director for 120 agents. Man,
we had a lot of Advil and Excedrin, and it's a lot of it, man. Oh, Jesus.
Caffeine and nicotine. Like, those are the two biggest things I could do. But you do see where you can. We know what salespeople are good at. Salespeople are good at selling. They're not good at paperwork, and they're terrible at follow-up, right? Mm-hmm. So if you can, again, I go back to systems. I'm big on systems. What systems do you have in place? Whether that's your CRM, is that doing a lot of follow-up for you? Is that doing some initial reach out for you? But the follow-up is the more important thing. NAR put out a statistic not too long ago. 84% of people said they would use the same real estate agent again, and only 20% actually do. Because, like you said, you put somebody in a house, in 10 years, they're going to sell it. Do they remember who you are? Or are you just some guy that just showed them a house and got them in there and left and never talked to them again?
Hey, so here's an idea for your listeners. My wife put this together this year. It speaks exactly to what you just said, the 20% thing. And people forget who you are. This is a no-brainer. You probably have their addresses, but you have the addresses of all your former clients. And instead of sending, in the past, we've sent them like holiday cards or whatever like that. So what we did this year is, right in front of St. Patrick's Day, we had a custom kind of card made, and we put a scratch-off lottery ticket in it. And we said, we feel lucky to have had you as a client, and, happy St. Patrick's Day. And, maybe you have our business card or whatever. But because sometimes people are like, yeah, remember our realtors from 8 years ago? They were really nice. Who the hell, what was their name again? I completely forgot.
Yep.
Well, at least you try, it's a touch, and you send something, like that, once a year, or maybe sometimes at Christmas time, we drop off, it could be a dessert, cake, wine, whatever. So that's really important for, because it may be 10, 15 years from now, but whatever you spent on all these years and all those different things and try to stay in touch with people, it's worth it. The other thing we do is we send them a magazine. There's one of these magazines, I forget what it is. It's actually pretty well done. It comes out maybe, I think it's like 6 times a year, every 2 months. And I think it costs me like $15 a year per magazine. So if I do, 100 magazines, it's $1,500 a year, but 6 times a year. And it has our, mugshot on the front and our, Scott's recipe for vodka lemonade or something in the summer inside. You can tear it out, or Scott's meatloaf recipe. But it has some decent little articles. But at the end of the day, 6 times a year for the cost of like $15, they're seeing and remembering who the heck we are.
Yeah.
That's something, like I said, 84% versus 20% that actually use them. That's a way to stay in front of your former clients for not a ton of money, and it's on autopilot, so you don't even have to worry about it. With the magazines, it's on automatic pilot.
Right. I love that. And the scratch off thing. Off thing is one of my favorite things, because it's a $1 scratch off for something I'm out. I got some really good Facebook publicity off that. I had gotten a client here into a $480,000 house or whatever, and I did the same thing. I sent them a scratch off thanking them for their business, whatever. They scratched off. They won $10, and they put a Facebook post out like, Jimmy sent me this card and it was $10. We won $10, and I was like,
yeah.
I put you in a $480,000 house. Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks for the shout out. But no, you're right, and I think it is. I think it's important for agents to stay in front of clients. It's super important. But we've got about 5 minutes left. And really, I want you to think about one thing. If you were to start over again in this business today, knowing what you know now, what would be your first thing to set up?
Oof. Put me on the spot here.
Besides the warning from your wife being too close to you.
Yeah. That didn't work too well. She came back. All right. So I'm just starting out with the hindsight of the experience I have. What would I do differently, or what would
you do first? What would you do first?
Bring me on.
Bring me on. Bring my wife on board. Yeah, that goes without saying. I think I would try to get a hold of my personal finances, because that would tell me how much money I can invest back in the business. Look, if I need to make X amount of money and I'm up against the wall between paying for my health care or paying for groceries or whatever for something, and you say like, all right, listen, I really don't have that much money to put into marketing, which is too bad. But if you say to yourself, listen, I do have it, or I can make some cost adjustments here and there on a couple of different things. It's a little bit of a sacrifice maybe, but figure out how much cushion you have in terms of money to put back in the business. You don't know if you're going to make 20 grand the first year or 60 grand or whatever. So, but you used a thing before about 20%. It depends. Some people say 20% of 30 grand, that's 6 grand. I could do that. But then all of a sudden they make 100 grand and they're like, I'm not putting $20,000 into this. That would be the thing, is to try to get a handle on your finances and how much you can realistically put in. And I would say in those early years, go all in with whatever you can spend to market yourself, because it doesn't pay off right away, but man, it's going to take years off of. Everybody says 5 or 6 years before you get going. You can cut that in half by letting everybody think you were doing a ton of real estate. You may have 2 listings, but man, you are putting that thing everywhere. And and you're putting out emails, you're telling all your friends, you're saying, hey, if you got anybody for this house, just bombard the heck out of them, commit to spending some money. And that would be, I just kind of winged it. I had a little bit of a cushion financially, so I wasn't that concerned about it. But for people that have a little bit tighter budget, I think you just got to say to yourself, I'm going to find a way to scratch out a certain amount of money, even if I have to cut some other corners here and there, put that money in. That it's going to pay off. It's going to pay off. So
yeah. I love it. It's very good advice, because I think a lot of times, a lot of agents that I coach, I find leaks in their finances, right? Like $20 here, $20 there, $50 here, 50. We're constantly doing that. Shiny object syndrome. We have that the worst. It's the new CRM, the new this, the new that, and we buy it, right? So I think that's a very
$700 a month car lease. It's like, dude, get rid of that nonsense. You're spending $8,000 a year. Buy a respectable looking car, even if you have to lease it or buy it used, and drive that thing. It's not like the old days where you're driving your client around to see houses. They take their own car. Right. As long as you have something that's not embarrassing. Hell, I show up in my pickup truck. I could care less. You go to the local grocery store and there's a place you can jam up your business card. That doesn't cost anything. You can put up a pull sheet that says, hey, looking for sellers. I got buyers for people's houses, and they can pull the tag off of it. And maybe at the beginning it feels a little cheesy or something like that. But at the end of the day, it's a free way to put your business card up. You should be constantly handing those things out. You know, you got to be a little bit shameless. I never could get to the point where I call people at home and, you know, ask them. I just had a tough time with that, or knocking on people's doors. You know, if I was 25 or 30, absolutely. I would have been knocking on people's doors, trying to get business. You get to a certain age, and I don't know, I struggle with that.
Yeah.
You know, but look, if you're really hungry, you're really hustling, knock on doors, man, introduce yourself. Nobody wants to see this face knocking on their door on a Saturday. But if you're something like 30-something-year-old and you're like, hey, how you doing? I'm, you know, Judah. They're like, man, who's this young go-getter? Come on in, fella.
Right.
You know, and they'll be way more open to that than, you know, somebody like me comes strolling up and they're like, oh, what is this guy selling? So I just feel like you got a little bit more cushion when you're young, because they recognize in themselves somebody when they were young and they were just hustling and trying to get by. And it's difficult, I think, in the beginning to do that because you're a little bit awkward or something. But as time goes on, you're like, this is a no-brainer. And then calling on the phone after knocking on the doors is a cakewalk because they can't even see you, I guess, because I've never done it. But that's just another way you could try to drum up business for really no cost.
Yeah. No, I love that. Where can everybody find you?
Hiding.
Social media wise. Hiding behind your wife.
Yeah. What are we, Bert? Spelkerteam.com. SPELKER team.com. And Instagram, what are we on Instagram? Spelker NJ Homes. Yeah, Spelker NJ Homes. Yeah, there's a lot of YouTube videos too. I've done some, I think you'll find them humorous. I had one video I did with a pig, a live pig in like a $3 million house. I had some other stuff on there. I had a pig in a tuxedo. There's all kinds of different, I did a video where it was real estate agents are the world's most honest people. And I had a lie detector test, and I was basically lying out of my ass and failing the test badly. But I was saying like, hey, that's the most honest people in the world are real estate agents. And the guy interviewing me was like a 30-year-old kid that had like 60,000 followers on Instagram at the time. And so we wrote the script together, and we had like a lie detector thing that looked very realistic. So that's on YouTube too. You just type my name, Spelker, and there's all kinds of wacky stuff in there. But you know, so sometimes I try to mix humor. In there with some of my social media stuff.
Yeah, well, that's some great advice, because if we do, again, sometimes we need to lighten this business up a little bit and have a little fun with it, because otherwise it gets pretty down and dreary. It can be from time to time. So, well, my friend, I appreciate the time. An hour goes by pretty quickly, you know, but it always goes by when you're having fun. I appreciate you.
I had a lot of fun, and I'll catch up with me next year. I'd be happy. I'd love to come back.
Oh yeah, we're gonna catch up for sure, because we got more to talk about, and definitely more stuff to dive into. So I appreciate the time. Appreciate you coming on. Catch us at the Elite Edge Network, eliteedgenetwork.com. You can catch us everywhere you find podcasts, the Elite Real Estate Podcast. So thank you, my friend, for coming on. I will talk to you soon.
Welcome. See you, buddy.
Have a great one.
All right.